one.
Contrary to what you've heard, that somehow Joseph Smith announced he was king of the world in March of 1844, that he was running for president, that the quorum of the 12 left to go campaign for Joseph Smith's presidencyship, there had been a systematic and well-known buildup of militia around Nauvoo that was ready to attack. In April of 1844, after a large conference in Carthage, Carthage publicized in its newspaper a manifesto calling on the governor to disarm and rid the state of the Mormon menace. So far from being carefree, thinking he could just call himself the king of the world, demand that the United States Congress invade Mexico and annex Canada, and send his Quorum of the 12 happily on the road to stump for him for president, Joseph Smith, for all intents and purposes, was in hiding. April of 1844, when Joseph Smith met Josiah Quincy to discuss politics and who the Mormons supported for president, which was Henry Clay, it had been obvious that Joseph Smith and 30 of his men had just arrived from outside the city of Nauvoo. The political situation was highly charged in Nauvoo. Joseph and Hiram were being threatened with violence from inside and outside the city. The situation was explosive. In March or April of 1844, Joseph Jackson was heard bragging that Nauvoo was going to be rid of the Smith brothers in 2 months' time. The destruction of the Expositor printing press was just a false flag, and it was led by John Taylor, a Confederate and secret enemy to Joseph Smith. After this well-planned siege and destruction and killing of Mormon saints, the Quorum of the 12 and the Utah Mormon Church were in coordination with Union soldiers that were planning to invade Mexico, that they orchestrated the exodus of the Mormon saints in mass numbers, assigning children, friends, family to families that they didn't belong to. This was done also not only in print, but also in their sealing ceremonies. They used the quote unquote religious sealings to attach unrelated members of families to each other. So if you believe any of these Mormon bloodlines, you are being very naive. And I'm going to show you how my family makes no sense at all. 11 people show up in Nauvoo in 1842, and after 1844, Smith's assassination, I have hundreds and hundreds of cousins attached to our small little family group of 11 people comprising 3 families. All right, makes no sense. And I know that the Mormon Church has done their best to try and conceal all these assignments of family members to orphan children, to children who were left over after the killing that went on in Nauvoo and the stealing of the property. So I'm just going to show my family as an example, and you can do further research in all the various movements of the militias in Illinois against the small community of Nauvoo. So in addition to claiming they were the king of the world, the Mormon pioneers were also transporting and stockpiling weapons in preparation for, shall we say, going to war with Mexico and annexing Canada and going to war with the United States during the Civil War. And here's the Browning gun factory that was in Nauvoo. But what's more interesting about this gun factory, that when I went out on the tour with the docent into the backyard, they identified a small grave of a baby, of an infant. And what they said, they had been excavating on the property, and there was an unmarked grave of an infant. So they marked it, and they spun this lovely story about, oh, Mrs. Browning probably lost her child, could not tolerate the fact that the child had died, and so buried it in her yard, in an unmarked grave, mind you, buried it in her yard under the shadow of the temple on the hill. So one has to wonder, how many other unmarked graves are there scattered around Nauvoo? If you look at my family, where most of the senior members ended up dead and the children scattered among various families, I think there's a great probability you're going to find more unmarked graves of those that perished in the last days of Nauvoo, the killing fields of Nauvoo. However, let it be said that in 1842, a jolly family of comprising three families, a father and two sons and their wives and children, a total of 11, Nauvoo expulsion, this family balloons. So, in addition to marrying sister wives and daughter wives and kicking out your little boys because you want to marry all the women, well, the Utah Mormons also have a problem with keeping track of the offspring. Not only because it's confusing, but because it's completely fraudulent.